Welcome friends, welcome back to the kitchen. Another edition of Stuff in Our Cupboard Pandemic Pantry. A lot of people have been asking for a no yeast bread. So today we're going to do a quick bread, a soda bread. Now quick breads are an entire class of baking that essentially makes a bread-like product using baking soda or baking powder as the leavening agent instead of yeast, much like a cake would. Pretty much, the line gets sort of wishy-washy between cake and quick bread, especially when you get into something like banana bread. A banana bread is a quick bread. So in here I've put flour, salt, and baking soda, and I've just used all-purpose flour. You could use bread flour, you could use whole wheat flour. We have another soda bread recipe way back on the channel, and I'll link to that below, that uses whole wheat, all-purpose, and wheat bran. It gives an incredible loaf, but I didn't want to bring that one back to the front because I know people are having trouble right now, even finding the basics, even finding just flour. So if you have flour but don't have yeast, feel very lucky that you can still make this bread. I'm also going to put in some sugar and some butter. And we want to cut the butter into the flour much the same way you would do if you were making a pie pastry crust. And of course, you don't have to use a food processor for this. You could put all of your dry ingredients in a big bowl, put in the butter, and then just rub it between your hands or use a pastry fork. You'd come to the same place. I've got a lot going on. I'm just a little bit lazy today. I want to speed things up, so I'm using the food processor. Brings me to my next problem. All of the recipes that you see for this type of quick bread use buttermilk, or most all of them do, or the really good ones do. They use buttermilk because the complex flavors in North American buttermilk are what add to the tenderness of the loaf and the flavor of the loaf. But I don't have buttermilk, so I'm using a plain yogurt. And I'm going to mix that with regular milk. If you live somewhere where you can get kefir, use kefir instead. That would work absolutely fantastic. What you're looking for is the acid to activate your the baking powder, or the baking soda, in this case, baking soda, and the other flavors to tenderize the bread. Now, I can already hear people screaming that their mother told them, or their grandmother told them, that if they don't have buttermilk, you should add vinegar to milk. And I got to tell you, that's one of my huge pet peeves in the kitchen. When you're doing that, you're making acidulated milk, and you're adding the acid that will activate the baking soda, definitely. You're not making buttermilk. And really, you're still losing out on all of the flavors, the other flavors that buttermilk is bringing to the process. Because in North America, buttermilk, the stuff that you buy at the grocery store, it's a fermented milk product, and it has an incredible amount of flavor. So in this case, if you don't have buttermilk, my order of substitution or preference of substitution would be kefir. And if you don't have kefir, do what I did, plain yogurt and milk. If you don't have yogurt, maybe you have sour cream. Same sort of thing, you just put the sour cream in, mix it with the milk. And as a last resort, make acidulated milk with vinegar. Sometimes you've got to do what you've got to do, and I think probably this is that time. So, flour into a big bowl. And now we're going to mix in our wet ingredients. And I just poured in all at once, and then use a big spoon or spatula to mix it into a dough. Now once you've got a big ball of dough, put a little bit of flour on your counter. You still want to knead this a little bit, even though it isn't a yeast bread. And you don't want to knead it the same amount that you do a yeast bread, but you do want to bring it together a little bit and build some gluten. So a little bit of flour. I often don't put too much flour when I'm doing a yeast bread. With this one, I put a little bit more because it is a very sticky dough. And you just want to try to fold it and knead it until it comes together a little bit. And if it's really sticking to your hand, you can put a little bit more flour, but not much. Just be very careful with it. There we go, 2 or 3 minutes, and it comes together really nicely. Now, if you wanted to, you could just take this ball of dough, put it onto a baking sheet, maybe score the top and stick it in the oven and bake it as a round. Be absolutely fine. I'm going to do mine in a bread pan because I'm looking for a loaf. So this is just a matter of shaping it so that it fits into the pan. And into the pan. Now you're not going to be able to shape this like you would a regular loaf of bread. It's not like that. But I am going to score the top just to help it expand a little bit. We're going to stick this in the oven.
That's a pretty good looking loaf you got there, Glenn.
Ooh, so soda bread or...
I don't know. What else is it called?
quick bread. It's called the quick bread.
Yes.
A lot of people would call it yeastless bread.
Fair enough.
So this is not a bread that I would use for sandwiches, but it's great for toast. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It is a thick, hearty bread.
Mm-hmm.
It is, it's got lots of crust. It is dense. Mm-hmm. It has tends to be very flavorful.
Rich and moist. Slather that in butter, a little bit of jam, and that is amazing. That is an incredible breakfast bread.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really easy. And I know that there's a lot of people who want to make bread who can't get yeast. So this is a kind of a great in-between point that you can still have something for breakfast.
And there's lots of flexibility to it because it is a loaf bread. You can you could probably mush in an old mushy banana, right? Or you can throw in raisins, or you can put in, so you could even make it savory. You could put in some cardamom and caraway.
Cardamom and caraway, or rosemary and thyme.
Yeah, so, it's a base.
This is a bread that I would make again. It's fantastic for breakfast. Thanks for stopping by.
Stay safe.
Stay healthy. See you again soon.